top 10 by market cap token? I don't think it is after this.
Solana is fast and Solana is cheap, and you can also see it in the data. The selling point of Solana is twofold to the user, and that will matter a lot.
Let me just get right into it then, if that's the question. What is the total circulating supply of Solana? You're always going to be looking in the sky of when somebody's going to go ahead and sell SOL.
But it seems like the market's betting on this getting figured out in a favorable way.
Building a protocol when you have this massive uncertainty that could suppress price as it starts to climb, just the question of I don't know for me is hurtful.
That's typically the way markets move, right? Is the majority's offside. So this could be another one of those instances.
Are you better off investing in Solana or Ethereum for the next bull market? That's the question we answer on today's episode of Beta Play. But this isn't about ideology. No, we're asking deep questions using our own framework that covers technology, network strength, monetary strategy, and of course, technical analysis. So whether you're an ETH head or thinking about a Solana tattoo, you're going to want to hear this. But before we unpack Solana, let's rewind the story a bit. It's 2020, deep in the bear market. And after several years of development and substantial investments by venture capitalists seeking the next big thing, the Solana network launches. And the Solana token SOL is just 50 cents on the open market, eventually hitting $250, a 500x. Now, during the same period, Ethereum climbs a respectable 24x, tapping out at over $4,000. And of course, you know what happens next. The bear market takes everyone, obliterates everything, and Solana falls 95%. Okay, now that's the past, and you want to know about the future. Will Solana beat Ethereum in the coming bull run? That's the question you're going to hear us answer on today's show. I'm joined today by Cody, Ben Lilly, and JJ to discuss this project. Let's dive in. Now, Cody, you're up first. You're going to be taking us through the technology and talking about the network strength. Take it away.
Yeah, so let's start a bit with the technology. What set Solana apart? One of the main separations between Solana and Ethereum is that Solana has this thing called proof of history. The consensus mechanism is similar to Ethereum. It has a proof of stake mechanism, and that's like any other proof of stake chain out there. But the proof of history is like an invention by Solana, and it kinda is like it keeps track of time pass. So like you can, for every block, there's like a reference to the history of the chain and the past history of the chain, and you can know when a block happened immediately. So that helps with increasing throughput for the chain and whatnot. There's also these similarities, as to how blocks are produced. In Solana, you have a few validators that are selected by how much SOL they hold. So like the top SOL holders will be selected to produce blocks, and then one of them is selected at each slot to create the block, and they create the block with reference to proof of history, and then they kind of like send the blocks and transactions to the validators, and then the validators vote on them. And when a supermajority is achieved, that's 2/3 of all validators have voted positively, that gets added to the chain. And that's a bit different to how Ethereum works. I don't think not any other chain does what Solana does. What's that?
Cody, so let me ask you. I mean, looking at that as that invention, what do you think in terms of the value of that inventiveness? Is it sort of a 10x transformation just on throughput? Is it going to add that much value, if not necessarily to the price of Solana, but just to the value of the overall technology stack?
Yeah, it helps with the technology. Like having this like proof of history reduces like the messaging overhead. That's the amount of like information that you need to send through the messages. So it helps achieve finality faster. That's what makes Solana feel so fast, and reactive, let's say, is because D is another technology or like tech improvements, I'd say. But yeah, that's one of a couple. Another thing that is quite important is Solana has parallel execution. So there's like sequential parallel execution. Ethereum has one transaction after another. So it can get clogged very easily. And Solana and other chains now, like Aptos, we have this parallel execution in which different transactions can happen all at the same time. So the chain can go on even if you have hotspots of activity. Like, for instance, there's a NFT mint going on, and that is really slow. Like, people are trying to in Ethereum that would spike the gas, but in Solana you can have part of the chain kind of go on while that is happening. So that's another big difference here to Ethereum. And then you also have you don't have solidity. So for smart contracts, people would usually use Trust, but also C and C++ can be used. And now you have some updates in the past year, more or less. You had a lot of issues with Solana uptime. There was a couple times, or more than a couple, that the Solana chain went down. And also you had issues with, again, hotspots of activity, because the fee market for Solana was not really that developed. People could kind of do a DDoS attack on the chain, just send a lot of transactions, and that would not spike the gas, and the kind of chain would grind to a halt because it couldn't process as many transactions at the same time. So now you have the first update would be the Fire Dancer client. That's the client is the software used by validators to validate the chain, and the Fire Dancer client is being developed by Jump. It's written in C instead of Rust, and it promises a 10x jump in performance. You also have a fee market redesign, so this helps with increasing the fees in these hotspots of activity. So you can have an NFT mint, and the fees are increased for people that are trying to get those NFTs, but the fees are not increased for people that are transacting on a text or whatever. And you also see state compression, so through on-chain storage. So that means you can compress a lot of data, and that will help a lot with creating cheap NFTs. NFTs, for one reason or another, put a hit on Solana, so that's really good news for them. And I don't know, this is not a technological improvement per se, but I think it's also very interesting that some other chains, including Ethereum rollups, are choosing the Solana virtual machine to develop their chain on instead of the EVM. So that would be a rundown of the tech.
So yeah, I was going to say, from an investor standpoint, it sounds like they've definitely made some good optimizations for throughput. It seems like they have some competitive capabilities vis-a-vis Ethereum. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. And the last important bit I would add is that Solana is made to scale with hardware. So hardware getting better makes Solana also get better with time. And that might not matter much in the next 2 months, but it will matter in the next 2 years, and it definitely will matter a lot in the next 5 or 10 years.
Okay. So that's a good breakdown for the technology differences, let's say with Ethereum. How does that reflected in the network strength?
Yeah, well, we can say that Solana has seen better days. If we look at the chart for TVL, you can see it went up to 12 billion. Now it's at almost a billion. If you count liquid staking, that would place it at number 5. Compared to other chains. But if you take out liquid staking, you only have 400 billion in TVL. That would place it at number 8, behind many Ethereum L2s. So that's just not great. Stables, 1.5 billion, kind of similar to Arbitrum, again at number 5. That's quite good, I would say. But yeah, it has also seen better days. Number of protocols, this has significantly less than Ethereum and other L2s, at only 100, just slightly above 100. And DEX volumes of 750 million over the past week, placing it again at number 5. Not the best, but also you've seen definitely an uptick in activity at Solana. You can also see it on the chart. If you squint real hard, you can see an uptick in the TVL. But yeah, if we that this kind of like
yeah. So I wanted to ask, I mean, from your perspective, you just gave a really nice summary of the technology. Sounds like they're optimized for speed. When you look at these numbers from a network strength, what's your perspective on why the numbers aren't larger? Is it just the bear market, or are there other factors playing into the fact that this isn't attracting as much attention?
Well, it's because Solana was tied to FTX, right? So when FTX and Alameda went down, like a lot of people kind of like stopped believing in Solana. Solana was like the brain, like the poster child of FTX when it comes to chains. So a lot of activity went out. A lot of tokens that were championed by Alameda and FTX they are not at zero, but like it's as if they were. Like Serum, for instance, at its peak had a FTP, like that's a fully diluted valuation of like 120 billion. Now it has an FTP of 40 million. So a lot of these projects went down. A lot of technology, a lot of like developers that were working and came through FTX, or like they saw this happening and they just like threw their hands up and like kind of stop believing or like stop trying. But like there's definitely like a big number of like people that like are still believing in Solana. Like if you look at the increases in TVL in projects, there's a few like old cohort of projects. I think we can take a exactly. So there's like an old cohort of projects that like their TVL hasn't changed as much. Like you can see Orca down there at the bottom. Its TVL over like the past 7 days is actually negative, and over the past month it only increased 20%. The price of Solana over the past month has increased like it has almost doubled. So like if you see less than 80 or less than 90% increase in TVL over the last month, it means that the TVL of that project is not it's not increasing as much as the Solana price. So it's kind of like underperforming. Like there's no activity. You can see Solend as well, or Lido. Those are like the cohort of projects that came during the FTX days. But you can see some new projects like Jito, MarginFi. You cannot see it here, but like there's a couple other projects. One called Ellipsis. They are building Phoenix, that's a fully on-chain limit order book. And Jito is also doing liquid staking, but they are like adding MEV to it. So like you get like the API from staking and MEV rewards. And MarginFi, they do lending and again liquid staking. And there's more things happening, but they haven't really taken off just yet. But I think they will take off in the time. So I think you need to see price move first, and kind of that will attract a lot of people. Like you're already like hearing of VCs being like, hey, like we might have jumped the gun when we told all our companies like not to build on Solana when FTX died. Like these guys are cockroaches and they're not going anywhere.
So what I'm hearing is we've got good technology. Unfortunately, because of the association with FTX, when that imploded, obviously a lot of people moved away from the platform. You are starting to see some green shoots, if you will, with some of these projects like Jito that you just mentioned and MarginFi. And I think what you're saying is that if you can see the price, see some accumulation, you could start to see even more attention because the technology is rather strong.
Yeah, I think the selling point of Solana is twofold to the user, and that will matter a lot. Like basically, Solana is fast and Solana is cheap, and you can also see it in the data. Like the TPS for Solana, that's the transactions per second, stands at like over 4,000 every day. The TPS for Ethereum is like 10, and the TPS for like other L2s is like 20 at max. And then the cost for me to send some token on Solana, I would pay $0.0002. That's like, it's 2 cents divided by 100, so like 0.02 cents or something. Like it's nothing. For me to make that same transfer on Ethereum for ETH would be like $1 and like $2.5. And now like you don't see really much activity. Like if the on-chain gets hot again, that would spike. And it is better on L2s, but it's still like $0.5 or 0.1 for like an ERC20 transfer on Arbitrum. That's like 200 or 400 times as much as you would pay in Solana for each transaction, and for like much less, like significantly worse experience when it comes to speed and finality. So yeah.
Okay, so I guess anything else on the technology or network strength before we start to look more at the monetary strategy?
Oh yeah, another thing would be NFTs were quite a thing in Solana. And I think if the NFT market gets hot again, you're gonna see that coming back. But yeah, right now it's dead, even more so than on Ethereum.
Yeah, so what I'm taking from here is that really there's a lot of potential here for Solana, but it's got to prove it out. And maybe the monetary strategy will give us some indication of how far it can go. Again, what we're answering here is what this looks like in the bull market. So, Ben, I want to bring you up here and ask you for your perspective. Maybe you can break down the monetary strategy, give us some sense of how it compares between Solana and Ethereum.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I will start off by saying Solana has an uphill battle, and the overhang from Alameda and FTX feels difficult is an understatement. I'll just state that. But then the second part is I think it's causing a lot of confusion when it comes to the token supply and really what is this single source of truth. And I had an analyst look at this, and one of the first questions he brought up was like, which supply do I look at? Which one is the truth? I don't know. I'm looking at 6 different sources, and I'm getting various numbers, facts, figures. There's this tweet over here. There's this forum post over here. So I meant to say the disclosure.
Yeah, just to clarify, when you say what's the number, you're talking about the total supply or the circulating supply or both?
Yeah, let me just get right into it then, if that's the question, because the first thing is, what is the total circulating supply of Solana right now? And so I use the larger figure of 1.06 SOL in circulation, and that's in billions. So 1 billion Solana. And in terms of the amount of new tokens that have hit the market over the last year, we can see the supply growth is 3.5%. And moving forward, that figure is 2.7%. So that's good in terms of the reduction of new supply hitting the market. If you go to Masari, for instance, and you check out their circulating supply, they show 416 million tokens in circulation, which is significantly less than the figure that I'm looking at. And a lot of this has to do with Alameda tokens, FTX tokens. Some are locked. Some of that locked tokens are also staked. Do you report it? Do you not? What is a fair assessment of those tokens? How should we treat it? Like these disclosures, I've mentioned it before. I'm probably going to mention it some other time again. Like it is needed. And I understand this ecosystem wants to stay permissionless, wants to be decentralized, but these sort of things are extremely important for not just investors or speculators, but a builder that wanting to come into Solana, and it wants to know it's making the right investment in building on this chain. You know, what is the supply? Does it have a sound monetary policy? Like, do I want to go to Argentina to set up a business when I understand that their currency has some major inflationary issues? Probably not. If I have that choice to go to whatever country I want to go to, you're probably going to have some inkling to set up shop where the monetary policy is decent and the economy is decent. In Solana, there's too much uncertainty at the moment where, you know, the SEC has a disclosure system and everybody sort of runs off of that disclosure. And if somebody runs afoul, you know, that has consequences. And right now, the market doesn't have that. Like there is no penalty right now for Solana for having all this misinformation out there. And I don't mean it misinformation like it's intentional, right? I think there's so many different things now out there in the market and people assessing it or analyzing it in different ways that it's causing confusion. Like if you go to, so to really drive home the point, I put a table up. So I'm sorry, producer, because we were going to go into a different item next, but I think it's important to really drive home this point, which is the amount of sold tokens locked table. I think it was the right after the line charts that we had.
There we go.
That's the one. So look at those numbers right there. So I know Cody mentioned earlier that there was some upticks in terms of the amount of SOL tokens locked in the ecosystem, and you can kind of see this here. We went ahead, we took the top 10 platforms or protocols. We looked at the amount of SOL that was sitting on there as locked tokens. We looked at it 90 days ago, 30 days ago, and today. This is a week outdated, so the figures won't be that much different. But you can see there's some good growth there, right? These are some green shoots that are happening on Solana. Now you look at the amount of tokens staked, and that's a significant amount. But if you add those up, we're at like almost 416 million SOL tokens. And if the circulating supply is reported by Masari is 416 million, we're starting to run into issues. So that's why I took the billion circulating supply figure, because we can better assess like how many locked tokens relative to the total supply there is. And we can see it's heading and trending in the right direction. But a portion of those staked tokens are Alameda tokens and FTX tokens. And we don't, there's just uncertainty there. Like, what's a fair reporting standard? How should we assess this? This causes issues for me. Like, when will the FTX estate go ahead and unstake, unlock, and sell tokens? That creates pause for concern. But so before I get into my kind of takeaway here, where I really see not just issues, but also some promise on Solana, I think we should probably hit on the top 10 platforms statistics. So I made a chart here that shows the amount of SOL tokens locked on various protocols on Solana. Here we are. So you can kind of see this is, I think it actually is a little bit more than 10, but we got a lot that are kind of sitting low, but you can jump in here, Marco.
Yeah, I just want to ask, so can you just walk us through exactly what we're looking at here, what the axes are and what this chart is showing us from a trend line perspective?
For sure. So SOL tokens locked on protocols. Each line is a specific protocol, and you can see how that has changed over time, starting in October, looks like 2021, all the way for 2 years to present day. And so then the top line figure here is 8 million SOL tokens. And so I think at the top is Jito, which you heard Cody mention, and that one's sitting, it just had a recent jump over 8 million SOL tokens, but for the past few months, it's kind of been trending around 6 million. But you can see 3 of them really hold the lion's share of all these tokens. So just kind of, if we strip away the rest of them, I think that's the next chart. We're left with Jito, Marinade, and Lido, I believe. And you can see those are making the majority. You got 8 million over there, and the other 2 are sitting around 2 and 3 million, and that gets pretty close to that 15 million figure of total SOL tokens locked. And
Ben, when I look at this, it looks the trend to me seems to be consistent, except for the one on the bottom, which it recently looks to be trending up. But the top 2 seem like they've kind of stayed consistent, obviously with some drops and some climbs. Is that your takeaway here?
Yeah, these are the green shoots. Like, there is some organic activity taking place. It's around staking. So if we actually go to the next table, which was the credit markets, we could see when it comes to use cases for the SOL token, staking, actually go to the other table that we actually hit on earlier. We saw there was 400 million tokens staked. There we go, 400 million tokens staked. That's the primary use case, right? People just want yield. And then you look at the next use cases, we saw them earlier. These are really kind of derivatives of that, liquid staking derivatives of the token. And so
Ben, do we need to move on to the next chart?
Yeah, we can now move on to the credit charts, because now I'll explain the behavior, which is look at the yield. The average APY for SOL being staked on the network is just over 7%, right? Then you'll be able to get a little bit more juice as you go into liquid staking and go ahead and take advantage of some of those protocols. But then if you look at the other protocols, so you go ahead and look at the swap markets. I like to compare SOL to the derivative of itself in order, because you're almost trading between tokens, so you don't have that impermanent loss figure impacting your position. So if the yields are good there, that's an indication that the swap markets are healthy, there's good yield, and there's good demand for the token. And we don't really have that here. It's very low. You don't have that transaction activity taking place. If you want to go ahead and lend your SOL out, well, there's nobody borrowing that SOL. So there's not much incentive there. I had the SOL to stablecoin swaps. That number is skewed because there's secondary tokens that are juicing the yield over there. And so here we see there's not much use case outside of staking taking place right now. And a lot of the uptick in those green shoots are just around kind of new ways to take advantage of those stake tokens.
So Ben, Cody just talked about how if price starts to make a move, he could see maybe that acting as a magnet to get some more activity. What's your perspective on that? Is that what's really lacking here? Or do you think it's the overhang of uncertainty caused by the max supply of Solana?
If you're a developer and you want to go ahead and launch a protocol and you have your options, Ethereum, Solana, you go over to Cosmos and kind of build your own app chain over there, or maybe you go check out an Ethereum L2. When it comes to Solana, I think that overhang of Alameda and FTX causes a lot of hesitations for developers. Do you want to go ahead and spend all of that time, money, and resources building a protocol when you have this massive uncertainty that could suppress price as it starts to climb? Just the question of I don't know, for me, is hurtful. So you can go to another chain and you don't have to ask that question, right? Your decision starts to get impacted there.
Right.
So can it? Sure. But I think its upside is going to get capped due to all of these surrounding issues.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's outside of, maybe the lead developers on Solana. They can't control what Alameda or FTX is going to do.
Their tech is incredible. You hear a lot of folks that have been in the industry for over 10 years building, really give it a round of applause. And it's for good reason. Cody hit on a lot of those items. I mean, the fact that you can go ahead and almost apply a tax to various markets within the layer one that frees up other areas of the market when activity starts to kind of get overheated, that's incredible.
It is.
We kind of see that in regular economies right now. If certain parts of the market starts to get overheated, you could see a tariff show up. You could see all these price controls show up, and that's what Solana did. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Like, imagine for a moment, Ethereum had such things. It had those price controls. You would see the ability for NFTs not to just destroy essentially other parts of the market. You would have the same thing where like DeFi is not going to suddenly chokehold some other small part of the market. It would be able to go ahead and get its feet under it. It'd start to get garner transactions and generate fees and volume. Like Ethereum doesn't allow for that, so it just gets suppressed.
Right. But I guess in terms of the monetary strategy, we have this massive unknown that we just, again, beyond the tech, we have to be aware of that as investors to know that could be a problem going forward.
Absolutely. It's the question of, you're always going to be looking to the sky of when somebody's going to go ahead and sell SOL, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else before we look at the price technicals?
I'm all set. I'm curious what JJ has to hear because Solana, for the most part, over the last couple of weeks, has been very strong. So very curious.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear that as well. So just to summarize where we are for our audience here, the technology is very strong. We've seen some network strength, but not a whole lot. And obviously part of that is going to be bear market, but we think a lot of that has to do with relation to FTX. And then of course, from a monetary strategy perspective, what we're seeing is that SOL is really the staking is the primary use case, but we have that overhang of unknown on the supply, which continues to put pressure on Solana as an investment token. All right, JJ, I want to bring you up here. Let us know what do the price charts say in terms of Solana and particularly as we're trying to measure it against Ethereum.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was some really important nuance there. Specifically what Ben said with the supply, right? And I think we see that reflecting in price. So throughout this year, it's been in a pretty strong, what looks like an accumulation channel. It showed strength multiple times this year. So early January, it went up from, I believe the lows were around $8 or so, maybe even lower. Went above 20, and that's just kind of been consolidating. And now it looks like it's breaking out again. So there's been a lot of market buzz. You see a lot of people talking about Solana, et cetera, and for good reason, is that its technicals are very strong. And I find that interesting, specifically when paired against that backdrop of there being this constant overhang of supply, right? So somebody's buying in volume and has been substantially. So why are they doing that if there's that supply? So that kind of leads me to dive in deeper there. When I look at the weekly charts,
can we bring those up, producer? Oh man, producer's on point today. All right, walk us through what we see here, JJ.
So looking at the weekly chart again, it looks very strong. Like it looks like it's breaking out, right? At the same time, RSI is a bit overextended, so I don't think like right now is the time to place that bet on Solana and go all in long. I do think you'll have another chance to buy, albeit lower, or at least at a point of less risk, right? Like it's already been so overextended this year. We're kind of reaching possibly a frothy moment in the markets right now. So I'm not in a rush to buy Solana at this moment. But when I look at its weekly chart, that is bullish. And all things considered, like there's a lot of nuance to be unpacked there with what Ben said and what Cody said in terms of scaling and then figuring out just the massive supply issues. But it seems like the market's betting on this getting figured out in a favorable way. And when we look at it versus ETH as well, it looks extremely strong on the ETH pair, albeit overbought at this moment. But as you project these things forward, I think it might be a good risk reward bet to take a bet on it come the next cycle there in 2024. And I saw a post recently by Chris Berniski, fund manager, and he was comparing it to Ethereum in 2018 to 2020. So when Ethereum was in that bear cycle, there was so much doubt and uncertainty surrounding ETH. There was similar huge supply overhang in that you had a lot of people that raised ETH to sell what was essentially worthless ICO tokens, right? There's that huge bubble, and you had a bunch of people sitting on a massive supply of ETH, and we had no idea of knowing how it all unwounded. But because there was that uncertainty, it created the opportunity to profit greatly when ETH inevitably rose from the ashes and had a huge price run. So I do see some similarities there. To Chris's point, I think when something's moving like this and there's all of this skepticism against it, you kind of have to take a deeper dive and kind of wonder what it is that these buyers are seeing that isn't priced into the market just yet. And I think there's a potential for that. Obviously, there's a lot of risk associated with it, given the fact that they might not figure out the supply issue, or that the FTX, like this might just be an exit pump for the FTX estate, essentially. But it does look encouraging to me seeing this price action. And I think it's a pretty decent bet to outperform come 2024.
Okay. So pretty good bet. So when we say outperform, you're saying Solana to outperform Ethereum in 2024. Again, I think we're making the assumption here that we see some bull market or more broadly, right? This wouldn't be happening in a vacuum.
Yeah, for me, like if I'm going to invest into any altcoins, DXY would have to be down substantially, or just risk sentiment in the markets would have to be much higher. Like I don't see that yet, so I'm not in a rush to go out and have a Solana allocation at this moment, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, especially if its relative strength continues and it just continues on this tear as everybody's kind of sidelined and doubting it. That's typically the way markets move, right? Is the majority's offside. So this could be another one of those instances long term. We'll see.
Okay. And you know, we've done this now. I think this may be our 6th episode of Beta Play, always doing the same kind of comparison of a token versus Ethereum. One of the challenges I see is that we're in a bear market, have been for a while, and all the episodes are being conducted in a bear market. So we're, you know, perhaps reaching the bottom. We're certainly closer to the bottom than we are to the top. I imagine we'll need to revisit some of these charts as the momentum starts to move into the market. Is that your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And I think now's the time to be thinking about these things, right? Like if you wait until the bull market comes to have a plan, you're going to be too late. You're going to miss your opportunities, and you're ultimately going to be the top buyer, or you're going to miss out on substantially the main meat of that big move. So you really want to be plotting these things out now, and then have like a mental framework of when you would deploy, what those conditions would look like, and what your potential upside would be as well.
Well, you're not going to have that problem if you're listening to the Exchanging Good channel. So if you want to like and subscribe, now is the time to do it because you're going to know. You're going to be in the know. All right. So now is the moment of truth. I'm going to go around. I want to ask each of you for your perspective. And the question is Solana a beta play to Ethereum in the coming bull market? And I'm going to start off with you, Cody. We'll go down the line. Cody, what's your perspective?
Yes, I think it is. I think the market has been over-indexed to this multi-modular chain in which Ethereum is the greatest exponent. And Solana is the biggest bet that is out there for a monolithic chain. And I think price was unduly depressed due to the FTX and Alameda debacle. And that has created the opportunity for Solana to outperform the going bull market.
Okay. I like that perspective. An excellent explanation. All right, Ben, I'm going to come to you. Is Solana going to outperform ETH? Is it a beta play to ETH in the coming bull market?
Solana is a top 10 by market cap token. I don't think it is after this cycle. And unless the estate creates more clarity, more rules, and a lot of that supply gets moved till after this bullish cycle, then I'm sort of ignoring Solana for the most part because I don't think it can beat the L2 narrative on ETH. Like Solana in the last cycle was very attractive as people sought alternatives to Ethereum. When gas fees went up, they sought L1, EVM L1s. A lot of people went to Binance and a lot of people went to Solana. And I don't see that opportunity being there on this cycle. And with that supply issue and what's going on with FTX and Alameda, yes, there's going to be some bright spots. Like we had a very hated market on Solana and prices starting to recoil off the bottoms and off the lows. But I do not think Solana is a beta play. I think there's too much risk. There's too much uncertainty. And I don't see that narrative getting strong in this next cycle.
Okay. So we got one yes, one no. We got the tiebreaker coming up now for you, JJ. Is Solana a beta play to Ethereum in the coming bull market?
I'm gonna have to go yes. I would put that very close to a no. So I would say like 55% yes, 45%.
Well, that's a trader
no.
for you. Look at that. Okay.
And that's kind of based on the things that Ben mentioned. Like those are very big ifs and overhangs, and it does look very overextended right now. So what I would want to see is how it performs after a pullback, right? Like, does the bottom just fall out from here during the next correction, or does it kind of form a higher low and a stabler base against ETH and the dollar pair? So those will be the two things I'm watching going forward on this. But as of right now, looking at the technicals, it leads me to believe that yes, it will outperform in 2024, and those things will be resolved.
Those things are resolved. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. We got 2 yeses, 1 no. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are you someone who's investing in Solana? You believe more like Cody or like JJ that it has the chance to outperform, or are you more like Ben and you think no, that the narrative is not going to be there and the supply just really can't get fixed? We'd love to hear your thoughts, and of course, if there's other parts of the analysis that you think we should include, we'd love to hear that as well. But that's going to wrap it up for this week's beta play. I want to thank Ben, Cody, and JJ for sharing their thoughts and all the charts and all the information. Always interesting to hear your perspectives. And for those who've gotten to the end of this episode and you're interested in more, we've got plenty of beta plays. They've been wedged into a couple different podcasts. We're going to be breaking them out. They're going to be their own shows, but we've done tokens like Link. We've done other tokens, and I'm drawing a blank on some of those. So I'll put it up here. Cosmos, thank you very much, JJ. We'll include that here so you can go check those out, because definitely this is the time that you want to be thinking about how you position for the coming bull market, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and now is the time to prepare before everything gets frothy. You start having people start to come in and think, oh, now it's time to buy as we're getting closer to the top rather than the bottom. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the episode. This is Marconi White signing off. Have a good one.